Hey, so you had asked about the Hebrew Bible. So I actually have a few different. This is called an interlinear set. So this is a 4-volume set that shows the original biblical text in their original languages and then English alongside it. And the volume 1 is Genesis through Ruth. So this does actually have the Hebrew biblical text with English. And sorry, this is hard to do with one hand. But it's pretty interesting because you'll notice that the word order is very different in Hebrew. I think they actually read from right to left. You can see we have the Hebrew characters there. There are, I think those are Strong's numbers above each one, and then the English below. And then on the left here, there's a literal translation, which is pretty much aligned with the King James on the left there. So that's very interesting. Now, the Hebrew text that we're talking about here is the Masoretic text. And pretty much every modern Bible that we have uses the Masoretic text, which is from about the 6th century. So the Masoretes succeeded the scribes, the original scribes. They were very good at collecting and very careful at preserving the text. So that's primarily what's used in all Bibles. So there's not very much difference in versions in the Old Testament. They're pretty much all using that Masoretic text with a few changes. Sometimes they will appeal to other sources such as Syriac versions, or occasionally they will reference the Septuagint, which they note as LXX, which stands for 70. There's a story that 70 translators translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek for Greek-speaking Jews at the time, because Greek kind of overtook Hebrew in popularity at a certain point. And so they translated the Hebrew scriptures into Greek. And that's what this is. It's in English. So it's from Hebrew to Greek, from Greek to English. One of the reasons why this is interesting is that this translation from Hebrew into Greek happened a very long time ago, before the Masoretic text. And I think while people who were more familiar with the original Hebrew were present, and it's also interesting that many times when Jesus and the disciples quote the Old Testament, it actually matches the Septuagint. So they were possibly reading it in Greek, as most Hellenistic Jews were at the time. So that's pretty interesting in terms of the Old Testament. And then finally, in terms of the Hebrew Bible, I have the complete Jewish Bible, which is this one, which is interesting. It's got notes specific to things about Judaism, and it keeps some of the Jewish names. So you see on the right that we're in the book of John 11:9. And if you want the Hebrew version of that, would be Yohanan. That's how they would say John in Hebrew. So it's pretty interesting. You can kind of see some of the connections to the original Hebrew text. And in here, I was actually just reading, this is John 10:22. In most Bible versions, it will say the Feast of Dedication, which actually is Hanukkah for the Hebrews. And then this is Yerushalayim, that's Jerusalem, and Yeshua, which is Jesus. So it's really interesting. It kind of connects you back to the original Hebrew text. While still being in English, some of the names are different. And so here you can see Elohim, which is a word for God. And this is when, they're accusing Jesus. You were calling yourself God. Yeshua, which is Jesus, answered them, "Isn't it written in your Torah?" And I think he says your law in most versions. "I have said, you people are Elohim," or you are gods. And if you read John 10:22, you can see what it is in English. But yeah, so that's a really interesting one as well. I have tons more versions and information I can share, but this is already getting long. Happy to share more.